morning, and I'd like to say hello again to Senator Kasich and thank Senator Flanagan for another invitation. Senator Ritchie, we have not met, but I look forward to future conversations. And Senator Seward, I have listened to you during sessions because I don't have to watch. I can just hear the voices, and you only talk when there's something to say. I really respect that. I couldn't be more delighted that I have followed, that you asked me to follow that. No, you knew I would.
Sheila, I did not plan it. I'm just putting it that way.
But it could not have been planned better. I encourage all of you to look at the submission that the software industry submitted to the U.S. Department of Education regarding the 2011 rule changes. I don't know if you're aware of who the software industry represents, but it's everyone who has anything to do with software. I do agree with some things that he said. Sometimes the cloud can be more protective. Sometimes parents might be opting out of something that they perhaps shouldn't be. And that's what I'm here to speak about. I went back over my testimony from October 29th, and I talked about directory information, but I never said what directory information is. So if you allow me to just look at my notes here just for a second so I give you the correct information and definitions. Basically, directory information is information that's not considered harmful if it's disclosed. It can include a student's name, address, telephone number, electronic mail, photograph, date and place of birth, major field of study, dates of attendance, grade level, participation in recognized activities and sports, weight and height, degrees, most recent education agency, and student ID, but it cannot be an ID will get you into the database, or it cannot be a social security number. Okay, so if you look at this list, you'd say, okay, well, what's so terrible about date and place of birth? It's kind of an inconsistency with FERPA. They say in FERPA, you are never allowed to disclose a student's gender, ethnicity, or race. But if you're born in Mexico, good chance you're Mexican. If you're born in Russia, it's a good chance you're Russian. With your date and place of birth, if you have your mother's maiden name, or even just your zip code, you can have your identity stolen. I don't remember what year, maybe 2010, the U.S. Department of Education hired a chief privacy officer for the first time. Her name is Kathleen Stiles. And what I noticed was that before, where it said directory information is information which would not be considered harmful if disclosed, it now says directory information, when combined with something else, could cause harm or embarrassment. So let's go over what opt-in is and opt-out. Currently, directory information is this information that I just read to you can be given to anyone who can give it to anyone unless you opt out. So essentially, if you don't opt out, a parent is consenting to give their child's contact information to a stranger. What's opt-in? Opt-in is saying that I acknowledge, and it's actually opting in with consent. I acknowledge that I see what it is, and I give consent to opt into this, to disclose this information. I know you have a couple of bills in front of you right now. One of them is S-5930 and one is S-5932, and they have companion bills in the Assembly. S-5932 deals with opt-in, and S-5930 deals with opt-out. Both of them have their good and bad parts. The last time I spoke, I talked about a directory information bill that I was involved with going back to 2006. Senator Stewart, you were not there, but it was actually something that Senator Morahan wanted to do before he passed away. He was very concerned about special ed kids and this information being given out. You cannot disclose a child's gender, but you can look at a picture and tell a student's gender. You can tell if a child maybe perhaps has some kind of a special need from a picture. So it was good thinking on his part that he said, come into my office, I want to see you. So I also mentioned in my last testimony about the opposition that there was to a bill, S-2357 and A-8474. As I said before, S-2357 passed the Senate 2 times, once through the full Senate and then the second time in the Education Committee, and nothing ever happened really in the Assembly on that. And I mentioned the opposition, and I asked you to take a look at it, but I'm not going to leave it to chance. These are some of the comments that people had. They said that, let me look a second, that it's not consistent with FERPA, the Directory Information Bill. That's just not true.
Could you just explain what 2357 does?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much for asking me. That is the Student Privacy Protection Act that's in the package. And what it does is it breaks down directory information into disclosable and protected. So disclosable directory information may be the child's picture so they can have it in a yearbook, their height and weight for a roster. It might have their honor, the recognitions that they may have. So it's pretty much seen as being not very sensitive information if disclosed, until a couple of weeks ago when Forbes had something about a gay list being sold. And these students opted in, and it wasn't even through the school, but I got to thinking, well, if you're a member of an LGBT club, that's public information. It got really bad. The FTC stepped in a couple of years ago and said, if you do not opt out of directory information, this information is public and it can be foiled. And I need to let you know that the government and law enforcement are the largest purchasers of of student information. I can't specifically say directory information, but I think it is directory information. The rest of the bill says that a child's contact information, their name, their name remains as disclosable, their phone number, their email address, and the regular address, anything that can contact a child, that has to be opt-in. It's with parent consent. Now, what is different about this bill from, let's say, 5930, which is an opt-out bill, is that this bill is opt-out and it's opt-in. And what's different about this bill being an opt-in from 5932 is in regards to directory information. In the Student Privacy Protection Act, you may not, even with parental consent, sell the information. You cannot use it to profile a child. Even with consent, schools are not in the brokering business. We should not be brokering. This data should not be going out through the school. So those are the two, those are the bills. Other opposition was, let me read a little bit. Well, first of all, they say it's consistent. They say it's consistent with FERPA, and that's not true. They say that FERPA, in the rule changes, said that you can categorize directory information and restrict disclosure. We could always do that. That didn't really change anything. And I think did I mention the health and safety, that if you don't give this information out, that in a health and safety emergency, none of this is true. None of the opposition is true. So again, I encourage you to, I do think that that bill is still in there. I do encourage you to look at it. Okay, let's see. As far as the opposition, it got as bad as I actually had a lobbyist laughing at me, saying, oh, you're kidding. You really think that someone might rape a 13-year-old walking home from tennis because they had her email address or her cell phone number and they texted her and pretended they were someone else? So this is, I'm not messing around here. This is important information. Trying to think what else I might need to say here if I have a couple of minutes more. There's something else called PPRA, and it's pupil rights. I have it on here. And I did not mention this before. I did not see this before. And while I'm looking for this, really what's happening with directory information, and probably very much with 5732, is that the fair information practice principles are being applied. And if you're not familiar with the fair information practice principles, I can go over them, but I can tell you that you as adults have this protection and students do not. Children under the age of 13 have this protection online, and it's been expanded. The FTC oversees them, but the U.S. Department of Education oversees directory information and FERPA and PPRA. So what PPRA is, it's the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment. Well, I came across something called the School Improvement Grant, which is, I guess, now labeled the turnaround schools in New York, and it goes to the most at-risk, neediest kids. And there's a survey that I saw that they have, it should be opt-in because it's funded by the U.S. Department of Education. But I'm guessing maybe it's opt-out since it's provided by a third party. So there's still some discussion, and I actually have that question open with the U.S. Department of Education. I saw them at a hearing in Maryland, and I asked him the question, and he was stumped. But these are some of the questions that they ask on a survey. Think of your 4 best friends, the friends you feel closest to. In the past year, how many of your best friends have smoked cigarettes, tried beer, wine or hard liquor, like vodka, whiskey, they actually name them, used marijuana, used LSD, cocaine, amphetamines, carried a gun? Let's see. During the past year, did you bet? Are you in a gang? Did you attack somebody? The questions, I would never, first of all, I would never answer them honestly, most likely, if I were asked those questions. And that is one of the last questions. How honest were you in answering these questions? I wouldn't encourage my child, certainly, to participate in this. And there's 2 parts. It's, okay, if this is funded by the U.S. Department of Education, it actually is not funded by the U.S. Department of Education, actually. It's funded by the Center for Disease Control. So is this information protected or not? Is it part of longitudinal database or not? I can tell you it's an online survey, and I can't go into any more detail what that means. I would just be very concerned on having this information be part of an online survey that my child was taking.
Sheila, I need you to
We're done?
wrap up.
Okay, good. Well, then I'm just going to say 2 more things, okay? I would never allow my child to take one of those tablets home, a Common Core Line tablet that has a camera and a microphone. And I would like to correct the record. I did teach my daughter a nursery rhyme. Senator Flanagan and Senator Katzik might know what I'm talking about. And that was every night I would take my 3 children into the desert in Tucson, Arizona, and we would say, starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. I wish I may, I wish I might, have the wish I wish tonight. And if you've ever been in Tucson, Arizona, you see those stars 365 days out of the year. Thank you. No questions?
You have a
Okay.
good day, Sheila. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.